Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and over my recent trip to Billund, Denmark, home of the LEGO Group, all the way back in September, myself and my LEGO friends got a chance to tour Kirk Christiansen's original home, the LEGO Idea House. Ole is the founder of the LEGO Group, and as such, his home has been converted into a full-on museum, showcasing some highlights from throughout the history of LEGO, and it's something that you can't really even visit on your own unless you're part of the LEGO Inside Tour or get in through some special event such as LEGO Fan Media Days. I actually was lucky enough to be able to go twice, once for Fan Media Days and once for LEGO Masters, which was really special. So this truly was a trip of a lifetime. But now, let's transport ourselves over to a full tour of the elusive, not often covered LEGO Idea House in Billund, Denmark. Not to be confused with the LEGO House, which is open to public. Let's go. All right as we turn this corner, we are going to make our way to the historic LEGO Idea House. This is a really special type of place to visit. Not everyone normally gets to visit this when you come to Denmark, but this is so cool. Personally, this is my very first time in the LEGO Idea House. You can still see the flags and everything. This was actually made into an inside tour set a few years ago, which is really crazy. Cannot wait to take a look inside. Let's go. As we all congregated at the LEGO Idea House, the excitement was palpable because this is truly a legendary destination that I don't think a lot of us ever thought we'd get a chance to visit at any point in our lives. It's really special to be able to have toured this place, and I'm so excited to be able to now share with you the incredible museum that is housed within Kirk Christiansen's original home. Now, the tour actually starts off by taking a look through the early days of LEGO history in general, focusing primarily on the early wooden toys, the Kirk Christiansen family, and showcasing some of the iconic quotes from the many founders and initial leaders of the LEGO Group. Of course, on display there was the classic wooden duck. I still need to get my hands on that original one. I have actually gotten one of the early wooden ducks, and stay tuned for a video on that, but this was the OG. This is when you think of the LEGO wooden duck, it's that one. So cool to see that in person. They also had the iconic LEGO fire truck, which was also the subject of the latest LEGO Inside Tour sets, so that was really cool. And overall, this was just a really exciting entrance to the museum where they really started from the very beginning, the early days of the company, and talked about some of the very first toys they were creating. Now, looking around the room, this was just a wealth of LEGO knowledge and history. All around were wooden toys, all just on shelves displayed, fully behind glass, which makes sense because these are some of the rarest items they had there. And what was really cool was that they even had one of the initial injection molding machines, which was one of the first ones that Kirk Christiansen first made plastic toys out of, where they weren't even making automatic binding bricks that we know and love today, but instead they were making these little teddy bears, which could drive little plastic planes around and drive cars. They were just kind of some of the earliest LEGO toys, which you saw right there, and it wasn't until the Monopoly or the Monopoly sets where LEGO started to make actual building brick toys. Of course, they had the LEGO wooden gun. I definitely want to get my hands on the LEGO gun one of these days. It will be mine because it is such a funny thing to see, just the LEGO gun, and they even had these little special LEGO learning through playsets, unfortunately not available to us, but available to people who came to the LEGO Idea House and did workshops. Interestingly enough, they had some other toys on display there as well, but of course, the main section was dedicated to the early days of LEGO, this early museum, and it was so cool just going through the many years of LEGO history and being able to see all sorts of different stuff. Now, this is all predating the standard classic LEGO brick, because this was all basically the very early days of the company, and so as we moved further and further through the museum itself, we started to check out some of the very first LEGO automatic binding brick toys once we had gone past this vast collection and display of some of the most iconic LEGO wooden toys, like the elephant, the fire truck, the monkey, all sorts of different collaborations and specialized wooden elements, until we finally got to the standard LEGO brick. Now, the very first LEGO brick sets were an interesting hybrid, where LEGO was trying to experiment with integrating the brick into other systems of play, such as making little die-cast plastic cars. And so, many of those cars and streets were on display, and what the cool thing was that we actually even got to play with them. We were allowed to touch them, to feel the bricks, to play around with these original cars. I only own like 2 of these myself, so for me it was an absolute treat being able to actually see what the packaging looked like for these, to hold it in my hands was so special and so surreal, because this kind of thing, you never really find this online, especially in such good condition. And LEGO themselves have done a really good job at preserving their own history, which is something I was really pleased with. One of the rarest and most special sets on display was the Ferguson Tractor, one of their best-selling plastic toys, which kind of convinced them to shift towards plastic, and they even had that LEGO church, which is one of the only times LEGO has depicted a religious building like a church in LEGO brick form. Of course, some of these vehicles were quite interesting because this one in particular was a blend between wood and plastic. It was one of, if not the only LEGO product to include both wood and plastic in one toy, so that was really cool. And we even got to see one of the early test molds for the 2x4 wooden brick when they were still trying to figure out how to actually make the perfect clutch power mechanism, which was very, very cool. Now, as we started to move on from these early LEGO experiments with plastic, with early LEGO bricks, we started to move onwards to some of the later LEGO sets, which were primarily focused on construction. Adorning the walls were all sorts of historical documents and advertisements and photographs of LEGO in their early days trying to tell people what exactly the automatic binding brick was and why it was so special, and it was really cool seeing these almost in like kind of a black box style museum. It just felt so surreal and special to be in this room. This, as I mentioned, was one of the coolest things we saw, LEGO actually experimenting with how to make bricks stick to each other. You can see they went through a ton of different iterations, but soon enough, it was time to move on to the next section of the museum, where the next section was dedicated to what came before the minifigure, and those were these homemaker style figures and these special model team style sets. These were large scale sets that really tried to combine a lot of different sensibilities of play, as well as having a ton of other LEGO sets on display as we moved onwards to the next display, focusing on LEGO trains. This is one of the most interesting sets there. It is the whistle controlled train. If you don't know what it is, the whistle controlled train is a set that they made that was very expensive to produce. It honestly didn't do that well, but because of how crazy it was, they had this whistle right here, which you blow on to control the train starting and stopping, which is pretty advanced for a toy that came out back then. They even had some of these original LEGO trees made from ABS pellets, the same pellets that are today used to melt down and be molded into actual LEGO bricks, so that was super cool to get hands on with some of these vintage discontinued stuff, and again, they let us actually play with them, which was a dream come true, because many of these LEGO models, not even I will probably ever own them in my lifetime. They're just that special to see, and seeing them in such good condition, preserved so well in person, chugging the trains along the tracks was so special. And then we started to move on to the early days of the minifigure, and technically these are still precursors of the figure because they still have some of the early designs. Their heads are blank, they don't have movable arms or legs, and they're basically like statue figures. So it was quite interesting seeing their cataloging system for that, and also seeing some of these very early explorations. The next room, though, was dedicated to the full-on advent of the minifigure once we passed a Duplo room, which was cool that they had a little section dedicated just for Duplo as well in the museum. Of course, you gotta cover pretty much everything, every part of LEGO's history, even Duplo there. Then we got to move on to some of the early LEGO minifigure-based sets, which was really exciting because I was quite excited to actually get hands-on with some of the very first LEGO minifigures, and here they are. You have the iconic Yellow Castle, a set I do have in my collection, but not in quite as good quality as this. You have some of the very first LEGO Castle sets, LEGO City, and LEGO Space. Here they had a vintage LEGO City diorama, which is really cool. You can see Rob and myself taking a look at some of these really interesting LEGO items. Again, so many cool things on display here, and it was such a treat to be able to just tour around here and take a look at some of the most exclusive and special rare LEGO sets. And of course, there was even a separate section dedicated to LEGO Pirates, and an entire display dedicated to LEGO Fabuland, one of my favorite vintage LEGO themes that had such a unique sensibility and aesthetic to it. And on the completely other end of things, they even had some of the early LEGO Technic sets there too. They pretty much just had one of everything, including a room dedicated to LEGO Technic, which was so cool being able to see all of these different sets from different eras of the now legendary LEGO theme. Moving onwards, there were many different city layouts, castle layouts. Here are some more photographs that I took of the actual minifigure focus layouts they had there, which was one of the most important sections because these were the early minifigure based playsets, so of course you have to dedicate a lot of space and display room to them. And then, soon enough, it was time to move on to some of the next sections. Although I will note, I really appreciate how they actually had a ton of flying stuff hanging from the ceiling, much like the Duck Bricks LEGO collection, which hopefully one day will be a museum of of its own, because I'm pretty sure that I had more sets on display in my collection than there were in this museum. But again, this museum was dedicated to just displaying the highlights, the best sets, and not trying to showcase everything. Of course, we had to get photos by the giant Bionicle poster on the wall, and don't worry, there was a separate section dedicated to just action figures and Bionicle sets, so that was really cool to be able to see that. And of course, all the legends had to congregate to take photos by the Bionicle posters. Moving from there, we actually got to go and take a look at some of the more modern LEGO sets. We kind of jumped several years forward in time, taking a look at Ninjago with a really weird selection of minifigures. I'm not really sure why those specific minifigs were there. And also LEGO Star Wars, for which an entire separate room was dedicated to the theme. This was so cool to see, because they actually had it fully decked out with kind of a Star Destroyer bridge type aesthetic. They had Star Wars sound effects and soundtracks playing in the room itself. It truly felt like a specialized museum style room, and it was really cool being able to go there and check out a lot of the designers' favorite Star Wars models. Interestingly enough, they had a kind of strange selection of models, certainly not the ones that I personally would have picked to showcase many years of the theme, but I guess it makes sense, right? You gotta have like all the X-Wings there, that makes sense, both Millennium Falcon UCS sets, and then they had just some random other stuff, which was quite interesting. I am very happy though that they did actually manage to depict the CCBS buildable figures there as well, because again, you gotta cover pretty much everything, including some of the Comic-Con and event exclusives, so they really tried to include a ton of different eclectic models, and yes, they did have some hanging from the ceiling there, much like in my collection, which was very cool to see. But of course, one of my favorite displays there was this display dedicated to LEGO Construction and action figures, featuring all 6 Toamata and examples from a ton of different LEGO Construction properties, from Ben 10 to Hero Factory to the CCBS superhero sets to Legends of Chima and to Star Wars. Yes, I did repose every single one of these characters into actual good-looking poses. They were not in good poses when I got there, but I made sure to leave them in very nice poses myself. Of course, it was really cool to see a mix of different LEGO sets, like some of the older style of vintage, like 2005 to 2007 era city sets. They even had some Belleville stuff on display. That Belleville set in particular is one that I've had my eye on for a while. I really want to pick that up one day, and it was really interesting seeing a dedicated section to all sorts of different pieces of LEGO history. Again, huge thank you to LEGO for actually putting Construction in there. That was really cool to see, an entire section dedicated to just action figures, although I do have to ask, where is Galador and Knight's Kingdom? I was very curious about where those were, because they, for whatever reason, were not present in that display. I guess some companies do always have something they want to hide. Moving onwards, there was a section dedicated to some of the modern LEGO icon stuff, LEGO modular building, and finally LEGO architecture, where an entire room was showcasing almost every single LEGO architecture set ever made. Moving on from there, there were different sections dedicated to modern LEGO themes, including a massive print of Tommy Andreassen's original Ninjago artwork concept sketch, which was really nice to see, and they even just had a lot of different sections dedicated to original LEGO themes, LEGO robotics. They had this really interesting LEGO Bionicle drawstring bag, which I've never seen before, that had a white Picari on it. That is so weird and cool. And yes, they did have the Tahu buildable clock, which I got to play around with, which was very cool to see that on display. And yeah, they had some of the strangest LEGO items there as well. From Belleville to Scala to the original LEGO baby Duplo dolls, there were quite a lot of interesting LEGO items here, and it was cool just going down the different annals of LEGO history and taking a look at everything they had. Overall, we had a phenomenal experience at the LEGO Idea House. I had always seen like a couple of photos of this place before, but never covered in such depth. I'm pretty sure that in this video, I took a picture of basically every single room there. Every set on display should be showcased in this video, so I wanted this video to be like the most comprehensive coverage of what you can actually see in this incredible invite-only LEGO museum. For me, this was not just a trip down memory lane, although it certainly was that. It was also a way to be able to really experience LEGO history and see some things that even I have never ever seen in person myself. Even with a collection like mine, there were a lot of items here that I just had never seen in person before, and even a couple of items like that Bionicle drawstring bag that I had never seen before, even in images in my life. So this was truly a really special experience. I'm really happy to have been able to share it with all of you, and at the end of the tour, we actually got to take home some of these exclusive printed 2x4 Lego bricks showcasing the different values of the Lego group, which was really special because you can only get these bricks at the Lego Idea House, which is very, very cool, and they are, of course, displayed on my wall now. Now that about sums up this look at the Lego Idea House in Billund, Denmark. It is one of the most interesting places to go in Denmark. I've been to Denmark quite a few times, but I've never actually gotten the chance to see this in person until this recent trip, where crazily enough, two crazy opportunities and experiences happened to align: Fan Media Days and winning Lego Masters, that allowed us to go not once but twice to this Idea House, and for the second time even get a private tour just to ourselves, which was so surreal and so special. We'll close this out by just showcasing some of the images that I took throughout my time here, just taking a look at some of my favorite Lego sets that we got to see in the different rooms of the Lego Idea House. I hope you enjoyed this special tour of one of the most interesting Lego destinations to visit in the world. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know. I'm really curious if anybody in the comments has also been able to go on this tour. I believe some folks attending Scarebic Fan Weekend can also sign up for the tour itself. Of course, if you do the inside tour, you can attend the tour, but it's pretty hard to get it. And I honestly hope that Lego will open this up to more tours, maybe some guided stuff that you can book through the Lego House for a cost, because I certainly would pay to visit this place again. Maybe the fear is that since all the models are out there, they don't want anything to break, but I don't know. It was just such a cool experience, and I'm so glad to have been able to share it with all of you. Thanks all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our special exclusive tour of the Lego Idea House. Alright, and with that, we have summed up our tour through the fantastic Lego Idea House. Again, this was the original home of Lego founder Kirk Christiansen, so it was really special to be able to actually go here and see all of the sites for myself. I hope you enjoyed this tour of this really unique Lego destination in Billund, Denmark. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more Lego news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming away very soon, and bye for now.